Hello, welcome to the Media Club. I'm your host, Matt Deegan. In the club today, Kate Phillips is announced as the BBC's all-powerful creative lead. Faraz Osman, founder of TV indie Goldwaller, takes a look at her in tray. Also on the show, TV advertising gets the self-service treatment. Rebecca Cooney, insight editor at Broadcast, tells us why broadcasters are targeting small businesses. Plus, speaking of advertising, with the threat of AI ever present, how do creatives rate their chances of survival? Campaign's UK editor Maisie McCabe is down the line from Cannes. Of course she is. And in the Audio Network Media Quiz, we give 3 more stories a comedy treatment. That's all happening in this edition of the Media Club. Come on in. Hello to you both.
Hello.
Welcome back. So, Rebecca, who have you got to add to our club roles this week?
I feel like I'm being thunderingly obvious, but also I would be amiss not to say Kate Phillips has had a fantastic week.
She has.
And I'm sure we'll talk about that a bit more.
So, well liked in the sector?
Really well liked. Yes, genuinely everybody says she's really lovely. She's very good at sort of managing different people, managing sort of talent, really well respected, really genuinely well liked, I think internally and externally.
Okay, so, we'll get into that in a bit. Very welcome, and obviously now she's been elevated, of course, makes the club even more showbiz. And Faraz, who would you like to get the membership card?
So off the back of that, Angela Jane has just become the European Supremo at Disney, which I think was a job that Charlotte Moore was, but Kate Phillips' predecessor was linked to, shall we say. So there's definitely a lot of movement that's going around at the top table of telly. And I think it's a massive appointment for her, and she is really great as well. So I think it's a great get for Disney. Obviously, it'd be interesting to know who then is going to take her job at ITV Studios, because that's a very big job as well. And as they're in the middle of I don't know if it's called a sale, a beauty parade. I don't know what you call it in the finance space, but obviously they're out there. They have said that they are entertaining buyers, I think is the phrase. And so having the right person in the top job, because Studios is a big part of that sale, means that Angela is leaving a very big position open. It'd be interesting to see who goes there.
So she's getting your +1 this week.
Yeah, it'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
She's like a bit, but there's some brilliant TV people making some big moves. It's great.
Yeah, and movement is good. Well, let's talk about Kate. So this is the BBC. If you haven't worked it out, I've announced their new Chief Content Officer. Most creative role at the BBC, but it's not just telly. It's across radio and online as well. Pretty much everything except news, I imagine. So what's she got to do? What's she got to do now she's taking over?
I mean, I think she's very much seen as the continuity candidate, which sounds like damning with faint praise, right? That sounds like, oh, God. Actually, you know what? Charlotte Moore was widely considered to be doing a very good job. And as I say, Kate is really well liked. So, someone that's going to come and do more of the same and just keep putting out. It's a tricky job, right? It's the BBC. So there's always going to be some criticism from some quarters, whatever you do. But she's basically just got to keep doing what she's doing. She is the exec that she previously led their unscripted commissioning, and under that we've had The Traitors, we've had The Return of Gladiators, both of which have been massive hits. So she's in a good position, I think.
Was there anybody else likely to get this? Was it always going to be an internal candidate? Because a lot of people turned it down and said, I'm not going to.
There were definitely other people floated. There were other runners and riders. I think it's difficult to know who kind of got down to the last few. Tom McDonald at Nat Geo, I think, was kind of widely considered to be going for it. Initially in the early days, Patrick Holland at Banijay was kind of, everyone sort of thought he would go for it. And actually, he came out and said, no, I'm not interested.
It's a great job.
Yeah.
There's a lot of grief. The money is all right.
Yeah, I wouldn't turn it down. We had this conversation in the office where it's like, so Charlotte Moore, because of it's the BBC, she was on about 485,000, which I wouldn't turn down. But in TV terms for that job, that's not actually a lot of money.
You can do better.
Definitely. And she was being courted by Netflix. That's sort of certainly something that kind of my colleagues at Broadcast believe very firmly, that she was being courted by Netflix for their unscripted job. And you can guarantee she would have been getting more money and perhaps less grief for that.
I think less grief.
Yes,
I ended up in a dinner where Charlotte Moore was on the table, and I made a complete and utter arse of myself. She had just come back from a trip or something, and we ended up talking about one thing, which was like rocket ships and like whether or not we were getting a rocket ship because it would make international travel so much quicker. And I went, oh, but it's, obviously, people at top of TV, they all fly first class, don't they? So it's a bit like, and Charlotte kind of looked at me and goes, well, I don't fly first class. So I'm a bit like, yeah, of course you don't, Charlotte. She'd be like, I work for the BBC. Faraz, I do not fly first class. We are public service. And I was a bit like, oh, okay, she's being very serious. So I think that now she's gone to Sony, I imagine her air miles budget probably would have gone up slightly, and she'll be doing all right. But you know what? She has done a fantastic job. And I think that with all of the criticism that the BBC gets levied at them, when it comes to TV in particular, but also radio and how successful iPlayer has been, when you compare it to other streaming services, public service streaming services, it is quite stable. And Charlotte did a very, very good job. And I think Kate's got big shoes to fill.
So if we argue the other way a little bit, so she's BBC lifer, as we've said, been there 12 years, I think. Good experience, a lot of good TV shows. Not a lot of drama or comedy there, not really radio or online.
Well, I think the radio and online thing, I think, is quite important. So it's worth remembering that this job was, by all reports, created for Charlotte when she didn't get the DG job. And so all of these kind of content things got amalgamated. And as you say, it seems to be everything that isn't news at the BBC. So that job was created for Charlotte, and now Kate has inherited it. Will she be able to shape it for herself in her own guise? That's going to be really important. Yes. And for me, it's great that we have somebody that really understands and gets unscripted, because that's the sort of content I make. But if I was working in the radio side of things or the online side of things, having already seen those two things get consumed by, let's be honest, a TV person, and now that's going to continue, I think that she's going to have to get up to speed and make that community feel like they're going to be loved and get the same amount of attention that the rest of the business is going to give it. So those are the challenges. I think she's certainly up for it. She clearly is very smart. She gets to BBC, which is not an easy thing to get. And she's made some big hits and kept people watching, well, certainly watching the channel, but hopefully she can get people clicking and listening. Is that right? That's her job. Click, watch, listen. That's what you think.
That's a catchpodcast you can donate to her. Yeah. Okay. Now, buying ads online has been a self-service affair for quite a long time, whether that's Facebook or even podcast networks like Acast. You can create your own advert, upload it, do the targeting, away you go. And now for us, that's coming to TV as well.
Isn't it mad it's taken so long?
Yeah, we were just having a little pre-show chat, weren't we? And this seems a relatively obvious thing to have. So this is the story. The commercial broadcasters are getting together to allow small, medium enterprises, SMEs, to upload and target their own ads.
Yeah, and when I think Sky were doing something very similar for a while. I don't know if it ever really took off, but I know that they had some sort of system that meant that you could regionally target advertising. And that maybe was the kind of precursor to this. But it is that whole revolution that happened with Facebook and Google, where you could literally micro-target ads, and therefore the spend of the advertisement and also the kind of return you get because you were hyper-targeting it was clearly the thing that kicked off the tech revolution. So it's wild that it's taken TV so long to catch up on this.
I mean, Rebecca, the announcement was, the big thing actually was everyone working together on this.
Yeah, absolutely. There have been so many calls recently for PSBs to start working together. I don't know if you've heard more and more recently, people are bringing up the ghost of Project Kangaroo.
Like the ghost of Kangaroo.
Yeah, just bouncing into the... It does, doesn't it? It just keeps getting mentions. This was a project several years ago that there should be a joint streamer for all the PSBs, and it kind of fell by the wayside because it was a little bit ahead of its time.
Yeah, then the Competition Commission at the time said actually you'd be anti-competitive. If you did.
And I just to put this out there, I think it's the biggest. That was the one single biggest issue when it comes to the reason that TV is in such crisis right now was that decision, which was clearly the wrong decision where we are now. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
I've always felt that like it's an important thing to everyone to remember. We can't make that mistake again.
Yeah, but it kind of feels like it's kind of gone by. But there's still, Alex Mahon at the Channel 4 annual report, sort of big reveal a couple of weeks ago, was she was saying, well, people keep saying we're all going to merge, and that's kind of nonsense because we are supplying to different markets, we are offering different things, and we should keep doing that. But we should be working together more. And I think somewhere like advertising, it makes total sense, particularly when you've got, you're talking about the tech revolution, the streamers, particularly Netflix and Amazon are leaning more into that AVOD, that advertised funding services. They are eating TV's lunch. TV used to be the biggest kind of advertising spot, and now it's digital, and now it's these streamers. So this is them trying to kind of protect their territory, trying to work together to, as you say, target the adverts more clearly, and have an offer that can compete with the big streamers.
I mean, it's a software that will have kind of existed for agencies anyway, particularly for the on-demand services. So adding another element of the waterfall, allowing SMEs to come in is makes sense if you've got spare inventory. I don't imagine there will be people uploading ads they've made on their phone. I imagine they still use production companies to make the creative.
I suspect so.
Yeah.
Oh God, yes, there is that.
The other thing I thought was interesting was, is this a great product in a world of like fast channels and spin-off services where all of these people suddenly, Faraz, have more inventory to flock?
Yeah, I mean, there is more space everywhere, seemingly. Like, there's television that like is trying to sell you. You turn your TV on and suddenly you see an advert before you even press the button to get into your into your service, be it Netflix, iPlayer, or terrestrial television. Now, there's literally an advert everywhere you look. So the space is certainly there. And it is going to require more micro-targeting, because I think it must be quite... I don't work in advertising, but I think it must be increasingly complicated to figure out where do you put your advertising pounds in certain spaces. And I think that everyone defaults back to micro-targeting because they want to make sure that every pound they do spend is going to yield a return.
I mean, you talk about AI. I mean, Facebook announced last week that, in effect, they just want you to say, I want to flog this product, and it will make the creative, it will do the targeting.
In lots of different formats and sizes and... I mean, it makes sense as much as it sounds dystopian and horrific. Like, why would you not do that? I mean, this is the thing. When you're working in any level of content creation, the biggest struggle that we've had, and I would argue the last 5-10 years, has been you create an asset and you have to create it for 15 different platforms in 6 different sizes. And your kind of deliverables list has just got completely out of control. This could add to that, but the joining of AI and of this opportunity may mean that actually it can be quite efficient. And like you say, if it means that there's more pounds being spent on broadcast, then I can't see that being a bad thing, so long as it doesn't go the other way, which is people start cutting budgets because they can hyper-target things.
Saying that, I mean, Rebecca, is this bad news for the TV sales exec?
I don't know is the honest answer. I mean, I think, like you were saying, the idea that there's more, you're bringing more potential customers in with these smaller businesses at a time when, we've seen Channel 4 really struggle with ad revenue. We've seen ITV really struggle with ad revenue. That can only be a good thing in the long run, that these channels will still be there and able to function and able to commission more content because they're being able to pay for it. So, yeah, in terms of the ad execs themselves, I'm not sure, but I think, bringing more money into the system is not a bad thing at all.
I think that what we may end up seeing is that the ad break, as it were, becomes, of smaller companies, smaller quality. And then when it comes to kind of branded content and like the big hero advertiser for that TV show, that becomes a more prized thing. Because as we know, kind of ad skipping is becoming more and more of a thing. I think people are getting more and more frustrated with being interrupted with ads all the time. And it may have a bit of a brand devaluation if every time you're getting the content you're watching is getting interrupted by an ad. So I think that we may end up seeing kind of the premium big buyers go towards doing big hero products. They did a crazy thing on Netflix recently where WhatsApp sponsored a documentary about Formula One, and that was clearly branded content. And I think we'll see more deals like that at the top level, but then all of these kind of micro level means that there's maybe a bit of a rebalance as a result.
Speaking of the streamers, in sort of hell freezes over news, Netflix has announced a deal with French broadcaster TF1 to stream their live channels as well as on-demand content too. Rebecca, is this Netflix going linear?
Kind of. It's weird, isn't it? Like you say, it's just, okay, that's happening. Particularly, so TF1 are kind of the French equivalent of ITV, right? They are the kind of the sort of the first and foremost sort of advertiser-funded channel on French TV. And they've recently, I was chatting to our international editor, John Elms, about this today, and he was saying they've actually put quite a bit of money and effort into boosting their own streamer recently, in the same way that we've seen ITV do, in the same way that we've seen Five's recently done it, UK TV or UAnd have all done it. So it's really interesting that they've then gone, yeah, but also you can do it. And the thing that's being quite nakedly kind of advertised or kind of put out in the press releases is Netflix saying you can do all this without leaving Netflix. It's about keeping you on that channel. So I mean, there must be a lot of money involved. Is the kind of the only bit that I can really see it kind of making sense, is that Netflix has just said, hey, we will give you a lot of money to have your content on as well. It's no way of saying it without sounding pejorative, but kind of world domination by Netflix continues, right?
I mean, obviously, TF1 have chosen this is a good way to either reach more viewers, get into their content more, and I guess make more money from the ads or what the ad deal is. But it's sort of dancing with your competitor.
It is, yeah. It's sort of it's going to where the viewers are, right? But is it giving up on those viewers elsewhere? Maybe. Be interested to see how it pans out and whether or not it paves the way for other countries.
Yeah, I mean, Faraz, it's hard for TF1 to go back on, or if they did go sort of back all in on their own streaming service, they'll be a little bit behind.
I mean, look, this seems like complete common sense to me, and I think the thing is that the way that Netflix has built has, obviously it started off basically licensing other people's content, then it started making its own content, and we were all like, oh my god, Netflix is making its own content, why would it be doing that when it's got licensing other content? And then it started doing live services, it bought the rights to WWE, it's been doing more and more stuff in live broadcasting, and everyone was a bit like, oh my god, Netflix is now doing live. They've tried doing kind of like press a button and suddenly your content just plays. This is Netflix. They experiment and they try different things, and if you look at it from the other side of the window, you look at platforms like Sky or like Apple TV, all of those platforms, you can watch Netflix on their platform, like in the other direction. And for me, this is just Netflix going, well, in the same way that when they started doing advertising, everyone's a bit like, but how could Netflix do advertising? It's a bit like, well, actually, they have clearly hit a plateau in the number of premium subscribers that they can get. So the next level down is to do advertising. And the next level down from that is to kind of go, well, we want you to come here. If we're going to do advertising, we want you to come here and we want to be able to sell those ads. And if that means we bring in other broadcasters to do that and share the spoils of that, then that just makes complete sense to me. It's worked for Sky. That's where they pivoted to. I say it's worked. I mean, that's been their strategy.
Is this sort of bad news? I mean, if Sky want to be the front door,
Apple want to be the front door.
Everyone wants to be the front door. And Netflix wants to be the front door.
Yeah, and look, the fight for the HDMI 1 slot continues, and that's what this is. And it will be the consumers and the customers that choose what experience that they want. And I think it hasn't done YouTube any harm by being on every single different platform. And YouTube, in America, they have YouTube TV, and you can watch TV in America.
Like a cable service.
With the cable service, exactly. So I think that the experimentation of form, it still is clear that TV doesn't know how this is going to settle down. And are consumers going to want to click Netflix and then see everything? Are they going to want to click Apple TV and see everything? Are they going to want to see everything through their legacy cable box? Is it going to be from the TV that they buy from the shop? I think the bets are still off, and everyone needs to be everywhere. And eventually, it all comes back to the iPhone, right? The iPhone is every button you press on the iPhone, Apple make money from it. And because they control the App Store, they control the device, they control the software. And if the TV company can do the same thing, then they will win in that space.
Oh, Rebecca, so ITV Studios obviously have a lot of shows on Netflix. Is it a leap for them to put ITV1 on the channel too?
No, I suppose not in that sense. I mean, I was just thinking when Faraz was speaking, like, this is total kind of, a possible future. But one possible future could be maybe Netflix starts doing the hardware, right? Yeah. You're talking about the HDMI 1 slot. Like, they don't have, maybe we get the Netflix box at some point in the future. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, in terms of ITV, I do think it's possible. Yeah, I think it's that sort of getting your head around, it could all work very differently, but there is no reason it couldn't work differently. As you say, once upon a time, they didn't make their own content.
Exactly, because the key to this is that now they're an advertising service and they're selling advertising. They need to keep people on their platform for as long as humanly possible. And if there's a breaking news story in France, you're obviously going to turn off or simply they don't have enough cultural content for France. It makes sense that they kind of go, well, let's just have the linear channel there because we can sell more advertising against that content in France. And why would we not do that if we're now an advertising company and not a subscription-based company?
The only thing I would say is that does clash in the UK a little bit with, Anne Mentzer's kind of thing that she said at the Broadcast Summit recently, was that, like, it isn't her job to make sure everyone likes everything on Netflix. It's her job to make sure everybody likes something on Netflix. And, okay, so you widen out the content, you're widening out what you can get on Netflix, but that feels slightly different to trying to keep you glued to Netflix and having everything on Netflix, doesn't it?
Yeah, potentially.
Perhaps. I don't know.
I just think that they do games. They now do live services. Now they're doing, by the sounds of things, they're experimenting with terrestrial television. It feels quite clear to me that, like everybody else, they want you to turn on a screen and press the Netflix button. I
thought it was interesting that the person that did the deal was a Brit. She popped up in my LinkedIn this week, and it's like, that's interesting. Let's see if anything happens here. Well, speaking of France, let's go to Cannes, where the annual awards gala and conference is underway. Campaign's UK editor, Maisie McCabe, is there for us. Maisie, hello.
Hi, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm very good, not as good as you. What a lovely backdrop of the beach there at Cannes. Have you had, number one, a good time, both yourself, but also from a business perspective?
Yeah, definitely. So campaign comes to Cannes every year, but this year we had a sort of branded area which we entitled imaginatively Campaign House. So we've been doing lots of roundtables with commercial partners and then hosting editorial sessions as well. It's been a place for people to pick up wristbands for our famous party, and yeah, it's gone very well. I've seen some talks this afternoon in the conference centre as well, which was inspiring.
So you have been inside as well, not just hanging out outside at all the parties.
Yeah.
I mean, is it just me, or has it become more of a thing recently? I've definitely seen on LinkedIn more of kind of the content people that I follow are there. Historically, it's very advertising. Are the worlds just colliding a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been various stages of Cannes, and I think there's always like an old guard who are kind of a bit annoyed about the upstarts. Obviously, it only gave film awards for many years. I think they've had tech companies for quite a long time, but now the worlds of kind of, I guess, broader entertainment and sport are converging as well. So the way it works is lots of conferences in Cannes. All the beaches down the front are kind of sponsored by big brands, and it's quite telling about where the industry is in terms of where the money is. Which, who has? There's a big Pinterest beach, a big Meta beach. X, Twitter as was, used to have a beach, doesn't anymore. So you can kind of see plot the fortunes of businesses through like how much they spend on their activations here.
What's the big topic this year?
AI. For a lot of people, yes. Although interestingly, as someone said to me the other day, there's not actually been that much discussion about the ethics and the kind of broader societal implications of all this technology and how quick things are moving. But a lot of the big holding companies are really keen to stress how quickly they're advancing, how they work. Unfortunately, that might mean for a lot of people that they lose their jobs. And then you have a lot of smaller outfits who are kind of positioning themselves as the kind of, a sort of polarization of the sector. They're going to be in the sort of premium end, offering sort of real human creativity.
We were talking earlier about ITV's or the kind of UK TV working together to do kind of self-service advertising. It's likely AI is going to play a big part in that as well, I imagine. I mean, Meta's sort of arguing that you just sort of tell it what your product is and it will go away and make all the creative. Is that just Mark Zuckerberg's fanciful hope, do you think, or is that coming around the corner?
I'm sorry, Matt. The waves are so noisy. I missed that. Could you repeat it for me?
Oh yes, I was just saying, like Mark Zuckerberg, I think, said the other week that ads, you just tell Facebook what you want to advertise, and it'll do the creative and the targeting. Do you think that's coming around the corner?
No, I guess. I mean, I think that will be I'd be very surprised if we enter a world where there's no humans. I mean, I know, Meta is a company that's been trying to sort of disintermediate agencies and whoever they can for a long time. I do think, there's definitely going to be a place for that. But I did a roundtable yesterday, and one of the things that, was about AI and media strategy. And one of the things someone said, which I thought was quite interesting, is this technology has all been sold badly because it's sort of been overhyped to such an extent that marketers don't understand quite how many humans you need, to sort of deploy all the technology. So, I think Meta will give it a good go. They're obviously a great way for sort of small and medium-sized businesses to reach people. But I think, there might be fewer humans. There might be humans doing different jobs. But hopefully there'll still be some of us around. Yeah,
maybe we're safe for another couple of years, just about. This isn't your only podcast this week, though. You've been doing your own too, I think.
Yeah, so we did. So we had a podcast. We did a podcast in advance. We recorded one yesterday, which will be on the campaign podcast feed shortly, and then we're going to do a sort of wrap up. We didn't do an everyday podcast this year, but a couple of my colleagues, Lucy Shelley and Charlotte Rawlings, did a 5-minute 5 at 5, so 5 p.m. Cannes time each day, sort of a little wrap up. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I mean, a lot of the content we do is sort of for the people here, and then it's written up and obviously shared with our readers afterwards.
And you can check that out wherever you're listening to this podcast too. So Maisie, when you're coming back to the UK, do you have any time in Cannes, or are you straight back to the news desk?
I'm straight back tomorrow morning, hopefully in time to pick my children up from school.
Good. Maisie McCabe, thanks for joining us. When we return, we say goodbye to a giant of TV production. I'll see you in a sec.
Hello, Media Club listeners. Patrick here from Podcast Discovery, the podcast marketing company, where this week we've been thinking about podcast advertising. Yes, that thing we're doing right now. How do you make sure you're targeting the right listeners on the right shows? What should you say to them when you get there? And what kind of data are you able to get out of the campaign to help you understand how successful you've been? For answers to all of these questions and anything else to do with podcast marketing, book in a call at podcastdiscovery.com. That's podcastdiscovery.com.
Now, no matter who serves your ads or what platform it's consumed on, we know the most important thing is that your show looks and sounds great. That's why here at the Media Club, we use Podshop Studios to bring you our show every week. With state-of-the-art commercial-grade recording equipment for both audio and video, Podshop has everything you need to make your podcast stand out. So if you're starting out with a podcast or a seasoned pro like us, Podshop guarantees professional recordings every time. You'll even benefit from a dedicated engineer on hand ready to help with any of the technical details so you can focus on the talking while they handle the rest. And right now you can get 25% off your first booking. Just use the code MediaClub at podshoponline.co.uk. That's MediaClub at podshoponline.co.uk. Welcome back. Before we return to our guests, let's see what we've all been discussing in the Media Club this week. Well, after 25 years running the TV trade body PACT, John McVay has announced he's stepping down. A lot in the sector has changed in that time, but McVay's biggest achievements will surely be the deal that broadcasters struck, allowing them to keep hold of their IP. From that came Super Indies, international investment, and a production industry that's still the envy of the world. The Advertising Standards Authority has come down hard on advertisers that perpetuate offensive descriptions of older people. In a new report, the ASA says that all too often ads stereotype them as grouchy or immobile and fighting against the ageing process with beauty products. And at the Edinburgh TV Festival is just 2 months away. The Media Club will be there. We've booked our Airbnb, and this week the organisers have announced a small indies bursary, which includes a free delegate pass and up to 3 nights complimentary accommodation. T's and C's apply, of course, and the deadline is the 27th of June. Links to that bursary and all of our stories are in our free Substack. Go sign up at themediaclub.com. That's themediaclub.com. All free to do, so you can get all of the links for what we've been talking about. Okay, Faraz and Rebecca are still with me. Faraz, going back to John McVay's tenure, the industry's changed so much, but he's been a pretty central character.
I think he's been more than central. He's been like you said earlier, he's been an absolute giant in this sector, and I think that the indie community in particular have really relished the fact that we have someone like him fighting our corner. He's never ever been afraid of shying away from the hard and big discussions, and also kind of cutting through some of the really wonky policy stuff that can be really challenging for people that are just trying to run a company like mine, but need to know that the tax credits and the PSBs and all of these qualifying indie stuff, which we all kind of understand but not really. And along comes John, and he kind of says all the right things in the right order.
I mean, Rebecca, he loves a fight.
He loves a fight.
Not a man known to keep his opinions to himself, which is exactly what you want when somebody's leading a trade body, right? I mean, particularly when you're a journalist and you need to ring him up for quotes. He's going to say exactly what he's thinking. And he was very good at kind of towing that line and going a bit beyond it, but never kind of going too far.
He was a brilliant politician.
Yeah, he was very staunch. And like you say, very good at explaining his point both to indies and I think to journalists as well, and communicating like, this is the problem with this. When you're sort of looking at this massive policy document going, I don't know what's wrong with this. Why are you upset? He was very, very good at distilling that. And very good at being very staunch in everything he believed and going out to fight for his members.
This is a worrying time though. Channel 4 are obviously talking about in-house production. No one really knows if there's going to be a cabinet reshuffle, which means there'll be a new culture secretary, and we don't know
if DCMS survives.
If DCMS survives at all, exactly. The TV industry is in a bit of a tailspin, and everyone's really worried about it. All of these things are kind of really big, important. We've spoke earlier about Kate Phillips and what changes she'll want to make. I think that there is a bit of a worry from the indie sector is that we kind of knew that Kate Phillips is a real front runner to take over from Charlotte Moore. I don't know who the front runner is to take over John, and I think that kind of rings a few alarm bells with everything that's going on.
Perhaps going to need to find another heavy hitter, aren't they?
They are indeed.
I thought you were suggesting that Rebecca should do it.
Oh God, yeah, why not? They've got until January to find somebody new, and he sort of said he's going to be there in a kind of caretaky, sort of helpful position. But yeah, we've not really heard many names suggested actually, to be honest. So it is interesting, and it's like, I think like we said that there has been a lot of stability at the top of the TV industry in various points, the top creative jobs, the top of the membership body, and it kind of it's one of those things where it feels very surprising, but also inevitable that the longer that goes on, the more likely it is that everybody will all change at once, right? I think it is going to be an interesting time.
Maybe they're propping the bar up at the media club. Like, somebody's giving the membership and they're a bit like, that's it, quick, get
just enough time for the Audio Network media quiz. Let's see how much attention our guests have been paying to the media news. This week, it's called With Hilarious Consequences. Inspired by 3 media stories, we've created 3 British sitcom treatments. Can you guess each story from these made-up shows? Right. Once again, Alex at Audio Network has defiantly taken on a wafer-thin brief and supplied a playlist of tracks to score our parody comedy quiz. Best of 3, buzz in with your name if you know the answer. So Rebecca, you will say...
Rebecca.
And Faraz, you will say...
Faraz.
Let's play With Hilarious Consequences. Behind the scenes on a raunchy TV comedy, 2 intimacy coordinators have their hands full. When it transpires, no one in the cast has ever been intimate, with hilarious consequences.
Rebecca.
Yes, Rebecca.
This is the story that Jilly Cooper is quite confused about the presence of intimacy coordinators on the set of Rivals, which I read that story and I sort of thought, with all respect to the literary legend and brilliance that is Jilly Cooper, absolutely love her. Of course, Jilly Cooper is confused by the idea of intimacy coordinators. Like, of course she is, and that's fine. But, I'd still staunchly argue they're a really good idea in the industry. And, and I think the story was in the Telegraph, so of course they were quite surprised by intimacy coordinators as well.
I read the story and thought that it meant that Jilly Cooper was becoming an intimacy coordinator, and I got very confused. That's why I was confused about the confusion.
Wow.
Well, she said to the Times, perhaps the problem is that everyone is doing it less and are less practiced because they're all jogging and doing lots of exercise instead.
Incredible.
I love this is the reverse version of young people think they invented sex. Old people think they invented sex and it was forgotten.
Time for our second sitcom. Nine journalists working for an IT publication behind a charity shop in Atlanta discover they are part of an artificial simulation. But despite being computer generated, they still have to generate dozens of articles a day with hilarious consequences.
I have no idea what this is.
Rebecca,
Go on, Becca doesn't know what this is.
Yes.
So this is, I think, was it called Leave It Up or Level Up or something?
Yes.
This
Level
was Level Act. So this is a tech news site in America, and Press Gazette looked at it and they went, yeah, we can't actually find the 2 people that seem to be in charge of this publication. There is no evidence they exist. The story seems to be written by AI. There's a picture of, and you look at this picture and it is of the team, and it's like 9 people in the team, and it's sort of, it turns out it was a Photoshop that they'd been photoshopped into this office with the logo in the background, and they were a stock image, and you kind of went, yeah, they do look like a stock image. They're that sort of perfectly diverse but also exactly the same type of people somehow that you only get in stock images of office people. So yeah, it turns out this website, it just doesn't seem like it exists, and like the editor's name is spelt wrong or like 2 different ways on the same page. And kind of the article from Press Gazette was saying like, oh, despite him saying he pays scrupulous level attention to detail, and I was like, yeah, but who amongst us has not sent out a CV that has a spelling error in it when we have a qualification in sub-editing? Is that just me? But yeah, it does just seem these people are completely made up, and I'm laughing, but it's hilarious, but it's also terrifying.
Yeah, would you like to be a shadowy figure, popping up a whole news publication written by AI?
No, very much not. I quite like being a very unshadowy figure in a team of real people. It's fun.
But it's a snake eating itself, isn't it? Because that means that like AI is scraping AI generated news sources to create AI answers for AI problems.
Yeah.
Cool, guys. Let's go on with it.
Maybe it's reassuring that this was spotted. I don't know.
By what AI?
Maybe.
But also, with all AI things, like this is the worst it's ever going to be.
Yeah.
It's only going to get better.
Yeah, I did get, somebody sent me a comment piece the other week that was quite, just a bit rambly, and I didn't really say much. And I did feed it into ChatGPT and say, is there a chance ChatGPT wrote this? And ChatGPT said, no, it's far too rambly. It doesn't make any sense. So...
There was that amazing, sorry to derail the quiz, but there was that amazing story from Sam Coates, I don't know if you saw that, where he found out that, like, he spoke to ChatGPT about one of his episodes of his podcast, and ChatGPT just literally made up a podcast.
Oh my
he
gosh,
never recorded it. It's a brilliant, if you haven't seen it yet, it's a brilliant clip of him just kind of completely melting down about the fact that he was having an argument with a robot about the fact that something definitely didn't happen and he was being gaslit by an AI. It's very, very funny.
Right, last question. Faraz, you should really try and get
It's too little too late there, let's be honest.
Question number 3. 2 radio DJs start a podcast to discuss things they can't say on air, all whilst trying to keep their very real jobs as the nation's biggest station and a hostile press, with hilarious consequences.
Faraz, I do know this. This is about Joe Wiley and Sarah Cox. Sarah Cox?
No.
It's not Sarah Cox. Okay. Lauren Laverne. Which one of them? Zoe Ball.
Yes.
There you go. I got there in the end. It was one of them. I'm not... yeah, they're doing a podcast together, aren't they?
They are.
Which actually feels like it makes sense. Like, yes, I got those 3 names wrong, but there is a kind of like era of female broadcasters who really did define like a whole generation of women, and them getting together and doing a podcast together feels like it kind of makes sense. I actually think it's a great idea, and you can really already feel like you would love to hear about their stories and their conversation, because my God, they must have lived a life.
It's going to be another Persephonica podcast.
Yep.
Do you think it's going to have a good chance of success?
Yeah, definitely. I think, like Faraz says, they've already got a following. They're consummate professionals. They've never worked together, apparently, which despite
Directly,
apparently being quite good friends. So that's quite nice as well. I will say I do also sort of like, my brain will swap them around, and I've realised you said Sarah Cox and I didn't even blink. Like I was like, oh yeah, she's in it as well. So yes, but I think that's going to be really interesting. And it is going to be...
It's an independent show. It's not a BBC show. It's going to be something that's
interesting.
theirs.
So it's going to be completely launched in its own right.
Yes.
Oh, that's
Which
interesting.
does mean they're probably going to have to be careful to not fall foul of the kind of Gary Lineker pitfalls of having a job somewhere else and saying something you shouldn't.
It'd be fun if they were just like, they came out as like massive right-wing influencers. That'd be a lovely
that would not be funny. Why am I laughing? That'd be terrible.
It would be sad.
But Makita and Lily Allen's show has done incredibly well, and so this does feel like it's a space that is ripe for I was going to say exploiting, that sounds awful, but it's like, there is an audience in this space. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and the fact that it's going to be a visualised podcast as well. I'm just going to do a very quick plug that we've got in the edition of the magazine going to press tonight. We've got a great piece by my colleague Ellie Khan about the rise of visualised podcasts, and just, why they are so popular.
They're just chat shows.
They're just chat shows, but they're more to it than that. And I'm sure I'm obviously talking to the expert, because we are in fact being filmed here. Something I regularly forget when I turn up.
I've realised I've come turned up dressed as Steve Irwin.
Go and have a look online to see what Faraz looks like. So congratulations, Rebecca, you win the quiz. You get to reinterpret the Media Club as a new lifestyle podcast, maybe in the Zoe Ball, Joe Wiley style.
That sounds fun.
You come back with your thoughts. And my thanks to Faraz Osman and Rebecca Cooney, and of course to Alex at Audio Network for this week's suite of music. You can build your own, licensed multiple platforms, anywhere, forever at audionetwork.com. That's audionetwork.com. And before we go, Rebecca, how can people keep up with your work and hear about that story?
Yes, so you can find more of our work at broadcastnow.co.uk. Our work, like I'm the Queen. I meant the work of the broadcast team generally. And then you can find me on Blue Sky at Rebecca K. Cooney, and Instagram at @Becky. And I'm on Twitter as Rebecca K. Cooney, if anyone's still using that, I guess.
And Faraz, what's coming up for you guys?
We've got some really fun projects that we're starting to deliver now, and we're going in production of our new kids show, which I am ridiculously excited about. Can't wait for that to start coming together, because we've got some fun stuff that we're doing. Anyway, you can catch all of that at gold_Waller pretty much everywhere, and then I'm on LinkedIn, where I'm trying to do more and post more stuff, because I think it's a fun little space to be right now.
Yeah, same. It's sort of become the new Twitter, isn't it?
It has. Thank you both. And thanks to you for listening and watching as well. Remember, sign up to our Substack. It's free at themediaclub.com. I'm Matt Deegan. The producer was Ollie Peart with support from Matt Hill. It's a Rethink audio production with video support from Podcast Discovery. I'll see you next week.